very short series in how to publish your crochet designs. It probably will just be this episode and the one previous, because after I finished videoing that one, I realised that actually there were a couple of points I hadn't mentioned. And then I also got some questions, which were good questions, and I thought I should come along and answer those questions. So I've got some notes, and if the last one was higgledy-piggledy, then this one's going to be even more so, because it is just all of those random points kind of smushed together to hopefully kind of finish the puzzle, so you have loads of different elements to put together and then kind of have a better idea about publishing your own crochet designs, and whether or not that is because you have submitted to magazines or yarn brands who put calls out for submission or what have you, or if you want to just go full on indie and write up your patterns and sell them on the platforms that are out there, or on your own Shopify e-commerce type affair. I don't know. I do both. I write for magazines and yarn brands, but I also do self-published patterns on platforms like Ravelry, Etsy, Lovecrafts, Ribbler. Ribbler is a dabble. I haven't gone full force into that yet. It's relatively new, but promises a lot of good stuff. So if you are new to publishing, it might actually be a good one to use because of the in-house features it has. But for somebody who's already got a back catalogue of designs formatted and made, it's not so... It's quite user-friendly. It's not what I'm going to say. And just if you've got a preferred layout of your patterns and designs, then putting them on a different platform which has kind of integrated features, it kind of therefore eliminates the work that you've done to format things. So anyway, I wasn't going to talk about that, but it just popped into my head. But what I was going to do was just go through this kind of rando leftover bullet point list of things that I didn't cover first time round. And one of the things that I didn't mention was about contracts. And so that if you work with a yarn brand or a magazine who publishes crochet patterns, excuse the phone, it's not mine, it's a working from home business phone, I'm not getting it, it's not mine. There are lots of different agreements, whether or not it's called a contract or it's an email where you both parties agree on what's going to happen. Do ensure that you have one, especially if it's somebody you've never worked with before. It protects you, so do make sure that there is something like that involved. And then read it, because they're all different. And they all include things like what happens to your sample when you've made it. It includes what happens to your pattern. Is it going to be used in sister publications that the organisation you're working with has? Or, and this is a really important one, are you selling the pattern forever? Are you selling the rights forever? Or are you just selling them for a set period of time? What is that period of time? Because it can be 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, or a year, or forever. I've done a lot of those things. I like to have the rights reverted back to me after a period of time, so I can sell it independently afterwards, after that time period has ended. Whether or not I do it immediately, as soon as that time is up to me and my schedule, and whether or not I actually like the pattern. But also I have sold a couple of times now, one to a book publisher, so it's in a book forever, and one to a yarn brand where I've sold the rights forever and I will never sort of continuously reap any potential benefits from that other than perhaps the exposure that might lend me. And again, that's a question of, that's a leap of faith, isn't it? Because you don't know whether or not it will lead to other things or not. But what it does is add to your professional repertoire. So, you know, it's worth giving these things a go, and it's worth doing everything once so that you get to have a full rounded understanding of how this business works. All in good time though. I mean, this is now 6 years I've been designing for other people, so it's a long time and it all changes, and I do lots of different things. So, but do read them. Somebody asked me about payment. Again, there's stuff in the contract or agreement about that, and it's all, I was going to say it's arbitrary, but it's kind of not. I mean, they do have systems, but I don't know as well if it's different from country to country. I don't know what they pay in America. I don't know what the rights are like. It's a completely different ball game as far as I know. I mean, I don't know why I would assume that it is different, but I don't know. Just clues here and there tell me it might be a little bit different how they run things. But I'm not entirely certain. But if you're going to work with a company, if your design is being published, then the chances are you'll be paid at publication, and you'll be paid if your sample and your written pattern are up to scratch. If you submit half-assed work, then do you expect to be paid full? No. So you got to make sure it's good. So, but if you're doing this, it's because you love it. So that's kind of going to happen anyway. Each magazine, each company pays differently. They might pay in a few different ways as well. I mean, that was like a caveat I was going to add, because yarn brands are slightly different to magazines, whereas magazines pay once the thing's been published. Yarn brands are different, and it depends on who they are, and I'm not going to go into that because it's probably really diverse and lots of different rules. So reading the contract helps you with that. You'll know what's what. If you're lucky as well, you'll get the sample back, or I have sold my samples to yarn brands before so that they can use them as samples. Other ones, you get paid but you don't get the sample back. Other ones you get paid and you get the sample back. There's no kind of one rule for all, so bear it in mind. It's well worth just having the mindset of if you don't get it back, you don't get it back for the sample. You can always make another one. But yeah, that's worth bearing in mind, having that kind of attitude of it's kind of not yours. Then you don't get that kind of sinking disappointment when they keep it. I got asked about whether or not it was worth buying the magazines or waiting so that you support the designer. And it's a tricky one, because actually it's a balance of both. If the magazines didn't exist, then there's not that platform for the designers to showcase their work. But likewise, if you don't buy it directly from the designers for their patterns, then they make a huge loss on that too. So the great thing about the world at the moment is that there seems to be quite a nice balance between people buying the magazines and people holding off and buying from the designer directly. So keep doing whatever you're doing. If you're a consumer, just yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And you might find that you do both anyway. So I regularly now buy from designers. Years ago, when I wasn't designing, I would probably try my best to get freebies all the time on on the internet. But now, if there's a paid for option, I will go with that because I know that it supports the designer. But then, if there's a magazine out there that has a couple of really good patterns in it, I'm going to buy it too. So, swings and roundabouts, I guess. But buying the magazine, with the magazine, although it may belong to a publishing house, the people that work directly on that magazine are probably all freelancers and rely on that income. So whether or not that's the designer who gets paid for their work, or the photographer, or sometimes the commissioning editors, and not all of them, but some magazines, they will be freelance. The photographer will be freelance. The makeup artist, the stylist, and all of those things, they'll be freelance. So you're supporting people that are kind of, they need the income. So if those magazines didn't exist at all, then that's not great either. Yeah. I'm trying not to cover what I talked about last time. So if I do kind of overlap, then I apologise. And then I know that there was a question about the ratio of hours versus payment. So how many hours are you willing to put in, knowing that you may only get paid £100 for your design? Are you going to put in just a couple of hours with some scribbling of sample kind of ideas and a couple of swatches? Or are you going to put in 15 hours of polishing it all and making it the very best it can be? That's up to you. It's really hard to put a number on it because each time you do it, it's different. Each time you do it, you do get quicker. Each time you do it, you understand more about what is expected of you, what they want, and all of that. And then once you've done that a few more times, if you find that actually you've proven to be a really good match for a certain magazine, say, then they may well come to you directly and ask you for specific designs, in which case you kind of sometimes get away without doing any of the submission ideas because actually they've come directly to you with one idea. You don't have to come up with 5 different ideas and spend that time. So the initial time you put in kind of pays off later, but there is no real number I can put on it, if that makes sense. But don't go silly, but do know that all that input means that you may be, as I said last time, I think, you're breeding new ideas for lots more paths to follow anyway. So it's an investment. Right. And the other question was, do I limit how many hours I put into a design? No, I don't. I think it just has to be good enough. I mean, it's really hard to aim for perfection each time. Obviously, we are in a period of time where we know that we are not perfect. We can't aim to be perfect all the time. So just make sure, not it'll do, but that it's good, that you are pleased with your work, and it's all, it's good. It's really hard, but don't get in a tiz about it not being absolutely spot on. I guess balance is key. The next thing to do is talk about what if it is an independent publication that is yours. So you don't want to work for magazines or whatever. You want to publish independently. Well, you can do so through e-commerce. So set yourself up a shop online via a website of your website. I have only got a blog. I don't have a real website. seems to be the thing to have an actual website, but so far I'm doing all right. I've got a blog, and then I sell on other platforms. I can't be bothered with the faff of the additional stresses of having your own comes with. I think there might be pressures on taxes and things like that, and I'd rather let those other platforms sort that out for me. But it's very much an each to your own choice, and also maybe one day I will take that leap, but at the moment I haven't got the time, and so therefore I'm much happier kind of letting somebody else do that for me. But it does kind of lead on to what you're putting out there and how much you're charging. And I'm not going to tell you how much to charge for your patterns. It's entirely up to you again. But do make sure that it's not pennies, because it's a lot of hard work. You want to be paid fairly, and you want to cover costs of yarn and tech editors and any other services that you may use. And then also really consider why you're putting free patterns out there. Free patterns are generally speaking on an individual's blog because that blog is monetized. If you get enough traffic, you get enough money on the pays per click and whatnot. You have to have a really good reach, really good traffic to make it worthwhile. And I don't get enough traffic for that to bring me money. I get enough that pays for WordPress pretty much, but other than that it does not, for me, generate a decent income, and I know that others are very fortunate in that it does, but I think for me I haven't got that magic touch. Maybe I'm just not doing it enough. Who knows? But also I did want to point out that putting your free patterns, and I learned this the hard way, putting your free patterns on another website which doesn't direct traffic to you is futile. Why are you putting free patterns out there when it's not doing anything for you? I put a pattern on a website for free, thinking that it would somehow generate exposure or something. It didn't do anything because because they got the pattern at the source on this other website. They didn't need to come to me for anything, and therefore I was not making any money off it. So if you're offering free patterns, make sure there's something in it for you. So if it's on your monetized blog, that's the place it needs to be if you're offering free stuff. I can't think of many other reasons why you would offer free patterns online, because what you're doing is generating income for somebody else, not yourself. So my free patterns, I did have them as downloads in other places, and now I don't. They're all on my blog. So if somebody wants a free pattern from me, and I do just try to aim for the simple patterns, the free ones, things where I've put in several hours and hours of work, I won't offer for free. But if it's kind of off the back of another idea and I can just do some copy and pasting, or the stitch pattern is really simple and it's very quick to do, then those are the ones that end up free on my blog, especially if it's something that other people offer for free, or you can kind of work out how to do it anyway. The chances are that if you put £3 on that pattern, then people won't buy it anyway. Where are we? What to do once you get the rights back. Okay, so I did start talking about that and then went off on one. So if you're lucky, then the person that you have published your pattern with, say it's a magazine, they may well give you the tech edited version of that pattern and maybe even the photographs, but make sure you credit those places when you publish it yourself, because what you can do is format it in a really easy document. I use Google Docs, works really well for me. Don't forget as well that if you bypass the the magazine thing and go independent, let's say, there's no magazine that's done a tech edit for you, so you have to get that sorted yourself. And it is highly recommended that you do it, because honestly, you'll think a pattern's amazing and perfect. There's mistakes in it, there just are. Even ones that I have had tag edited, sometimes you'll see a couple of minor errors that have been missed, because we're human. But luckily the maths is usually the thing that is correct, which is good. But do get a tech editor, and you can ask designers who they've used and who they recommend, or sometimes you'll find them on the patterns. Sometimes I credit the tech editor at the bottom of the pattern, sometimes I forget. 9 times out of 10 I forget, but it's not because I'm being mean, it's just because I've got a brain like a sieve. And then obviously testing. Also, as a designer, I think it's really useful to test other people's patterns. I mean, I did think about tech editing once, just once, but I hate maths, so no. I'm good at the word bit, the words and whatnot. And I can spot when a pattern is wrong, but not the maths. I'm not a maths whiz, so I'll never make a good tech editor. And then we're on to understanding the basics of branding and marketing, and I'm not gonna talk to you about that other than to say make sure you know about it. And social media is important as well. I would say to just Google things that you're curious about. It's all online. And I mentioned a couple of people last episode about who to look up for various different things like grading or I can't remember what else. Just tips and tricks about doing it, I suppose. Can't remember who I recommended now. But another one to add to the list, because I don't think I did, was Studio Cotton. They're great, a great small business themselves, and they offer loads of branding and marketing tips and tricks. So it's well worth giving Studio Cotton a follow. And then one I haven't looked into, but I've been tempted a couple of times, is Indie Roller. I've heard good things about Indie Roller, so that helps you with your small biz, and not just things like branding and marketing, but probably lots of other different areas too. And I am currently doing. I'm sorry, I'm playing with nail varnish. It's because I'm going to do my nails. I think they're terrible. We've only got one layer on. I am currently doing a Nomad Stitches garment grading online course. So there's loads of different things out there. Not that that's connected with branding and marketing, but it just reminded me that was the thing. They're all resources that can help you make your design business even better. And lastly, a couple more points. Be thoughtful about the details you include in your patterns. There was a comment on the last video about... What did I do with that? There was a comment on the last video about things like putting yardage in patterns, which is something I never used to do, because I think I mentioned briefly about how many balls you would need, but not how many meters you would need. It varies from person to person, obviously, but it really is something that I've started to do more of, which is supply the actual yardage or meterage needed for a lot of patterns. Each yarn is different, isn't it? So a 4-ply cotton is not going to be the same as a 4-ply alpaca. And it's not going to be the same as a 4-ply sheepy wool. So I thought I'd mention that because it's something that was commented on in the last video, and it's so true. And I don't always do it, and I've started to do it more and more. And I didn't always do it because I didn't know how to work it out. Whereas now I do. And that was, I mean, I know it's a very simple sum, for goodness sake. It's something like you just divide the weight by 100 and then times it by the grams you've got or something. I do have to look it up every time just to make sure I'm right. But it's something like that. I'm worried now that a lot of that was just unconnected ramble. But I did say at the beginning that it would be. And I hope that I've added to the questions that were asked. Sorry, I'm starting, I've got claws. So I just wanted. It was just the main questions that I wanted to cover that I was a bit like, oh no, I forgot to include them in the first video. Okie pokey. If you've got any other questions, then do drop them in the commenty area and I will answer them there. I probably won't do another video because I don't think there's enough. Well, there probably is if I went into major detail about everything, but I'm not going to do that because that's not what I'm about. Other people do that far better than I do. And so if you want your hand held, do look at the people I mentioned in video 1 and do look at the people I've mentioned in this video as well. And just make sure, yeah, do go and buy some magazines and look at what's out there. And all the other stuff I've talked about. If I start saying, pardon me, if I start saying any more, I'm just going to be going over what I've just talked about. So you don't need to. Looks like I've got a mustard stripe on my sleeve. It's a cushion. It's a cushion. Right. So yes, that is it from me. I am going to disappear now. I think I have covered everything, kind of at a base level. So you've got some useful information. All right then. I will go. Cheerio. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.